Welcome to Ask a Mountain Bike Professional Podcast. This is episode 2 of our Winter is Coming episodes. 2 of them. There's part 1 and part 2. Uno y dos. E-R. Any other languages you guys can pull this off with? Nine. Ein. Zwein. This is the Zwein. I made that up. I don't know German. Winter is coming.
Winter is coming. When winter does come, God's help us all if we're not ready.
So this is for the people who don't love winter, but love mountain biking, and who can't, or you could mix it up, I guess, but who aren't really going to get into fat biking or ski biking. This is the Head South episode. The 2 options we came up with. Nicole had a 3rd option. What was it, Nicole?
You're going to shame me. Be on a trainer.
Yep, and that's your 3rd option. So back to our 2nd option, Head South. Aaron, what are some questions we need to answer about heading south? Because first of all, the whole maintenance part of this is where we started, winter mountain bike maintenance. What is different when you're heading south? What do you need to do?
So, big thing is transporting your bike. That's where things are going to become an issue. So, yeah, especially if you're living in the Arctic North and transport your bike down south, you're going to get road salt and sand and grime as you're traveling. And so when you get to your destination, even though it's gorgeous and beautiful and the riding is spectacular, your bike's going to be salty and gross. And so you want to make sure that you can wash your bike and then re-lube it. Or if you love getting out of the winter enough, buy yourself a Sprinter van and just put your bike in the back.
Yeah. For those of us that can't afford to buy a Sprinter van, this is actually super important what you bring up to be able to keep your bike clean. I have done the wrong thing and driven back in horrible snowstorms and not paid attention to it for a while and had to replace chains and I think even one time a cassette and ended up having bearings that were screwed up in my hubs because of all the salt and grime on the road. Another thing you may not think about, I'm going to pull up an image for those watching that may be hurtful to Aaron. Just a beautiful transition Scout that he built up, was super excited about going with a 2.6 Plus, if I recall.
Oh yeah.
Making that fit into this frame.
It fit.
And then we went on a winter ride and it was muddy. You care to elaborate a little bit on that?
And that was so depressing. Very literally the day that or the first ride that I had that bike. So I finished it up, stayed late at the shop, and we were going riding earlier. It was a shuttle ride, so I was extra excited. And we went while it was frozen, and we even had a little bit of snow, so the 26 Plus tires worked fantastic. And then the last, I don't know, maybe quarter mile,
If that.
yeah, it was not far. It had rained on top of the frozen snow, so it was like an inch that just snowballed onto the tire, and I was concerned, but there wasn't anything I could do, and I thought, well, we'll clean our bikes real good, and then got back and cleaned them up, and I was missing a significant amount of paint right where my tire goes because it was just like sandpaper every revolution.
Yeah, we were actually a little bit concerned about the carbon in general because it looked deep when it first got cleaned up. I remember. You see, the other 2 bikes, because we just happened to have photographic evidence, were a pivot switchblade with more clearance.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
It was designed for like a 3.4 inch tire.
Yeah, that one suffered no ill effects, and the other one was, what is that?
That was a patrol.
Transition Patrol, but it had the specified tire size on it, and not
Get creative.
not a Frankenweenie style bike that he'd made it fit, and it turned out okay too.
I still have those wheels. So.
Oh, nice. So they weren't completely destroyed. They're
No.
okay. Next thing is if you are traveling for a long distance with your bikes on the back in adverse weather, what kind of bike rack would you prefer to do that with if you have to rack it, and is it worth covering up the bike?
So in my opinion, bless you.
Sorry.
In my opinion, a hanging style rack is going to be the best option, or a roof rack actually, even though I don't love roof racks because I see so many that people have driven into garages while their bikes were still on top.
Nicole, you're
Aaron
have
has
you-
done this.
Have you had this experience?
You've done this. But you know, it was a road bike on top, so
Oh,
were we
doesn't count.
crying?
Doesn't count. Who cares?
I can't believe you just said I rode bike. In front of all my
Aaron
friends.
has ridden a road bike before.
Oh, he doesn't do it anymore. He's recovered.
Yeah, I got over that.
Anyway, best type of bike rack. Probably not this one. For those who are watching, this is a bike rack behind a vehicle wrapped in plastic. This was me.
Yeah.
Ended up with these huge discs of ice that we actually played frisbee with in a grocery store parking lot for a minute. So yeah, there are good ways to transport, bad ways to transport. But most importantly, you get to the destination, you probably want to rinse it off on the way down, even if it was bad getting there, re-lube it.
Yep. Yeah, because the longer that all of that salt and sand sits on parts, the more corrosion that's gonna happen, and so yeah, and that brings us to how to wash your bike.
Nobody likes corroded parts.
Yep. Hopefully your Airbnb or VRBO has a hose at it, because you really shouldn't take it into the shower of somebody else's
But
house.
Dave,
I know we're not going to show that picture, but my wife did catch me in the shower with my bike, and it was one of those moments. Where it's like, honey, it's not what it looks like. But it was back when I was an aspiring dentist, and so it was a new Yeti, and I had just salted the living crud out of that thing, and it took a shower with me. It was fairly intimate. But both of us came out of it with a better appreciation for one another.
Mm-hmm.
My bike and myself, not my wife and myself.
No, she had issues with it.
She
I
thought it
think.
was weird. But the bike was clean. That being said, if you do have access to a little bit of hot water
Yeah.
to get salt and grime off, it is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I know in the shop we have a hot water spigot that we don't use all that often, but in the winter it's really nice to
Mhm.
use. Yeah. So, any other bike maintenance things, or things that you've ruined on a bike, or seen ruined on a bike due to heading south? Oh, I have an example. We just had a bike come into the shop with the rear triangle broken because of how they strapped it down. They'd strapped it down with some motorbikes. They were heading to.
Oh yeah.
They were headed south, and headed south to Moab, which is Aaron's current background right now. But
Yeah.
because a lot of people think you can't ride in Moab in the winter.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic.
There are. You definitely need to be careful which trails you ride in Moab, and the desert in general, because the desert has rock, usually sandstone, sand, which eventually will become sandstone if left alone for millions of years, and clay. And obviously sandstone and sand are just fine to ride when it's kind of wet.
They're better to ride when it's kind of
Yes.
wet. A little bit.
Yeah, we did ride Porcupine Rim in the wet a little while ago, and it was actually pretty awesome. But we did get a lot of sand into places that normally don't go on your bike.
Yeah.
Normally you don't get sand in.
Like rolling around on the beach
That's exactly what I was thinking.
with that significant other.
Yeah.
It's not as cool as it looks in the rom-coms.
I was more thinking of like all my kids, and
Oh.
all the places their sand goes.
Oh, I was thinking about
You and your
places
wife,
where
though.
sand
Okay.
goes.
But clay, not to change the subject, clay, when it gets wet, it gets terrible.
It's like cement, man.
Yeah, well, it's like wet cement, and
Yeah.
then when it dries, it's like dry cement.
Yeah.
And so, it goes everywhere. You destroy trails, you destroy your bike, and so, yeah, you want to avoid that desert clay when it's wet. If you ride trails while it's frozen, it's actually pretty awesome. That's what we kind of are dealing with right now. If we ride early, we're able to ride just about anywhere, but any later than like 10 o'clock, and you destroy the trails, you destroy your bike, and destroy others' faith in humanity because they see your ruts.
Yeah, or you just create a major shitstorm of people frustrated in
Yeah.
general for ruining stuff.
Absolutely.
But one of my favorite times to ride Moab is in the winter. The locals, which, I mean, they're smart, they're talking to your person that isn't really thinking about this. They'll say, don't ride if there's any wet or whatever at all. But like Slick Rock, when there's been a few motos riding on it and there's snow on either side, so it becomes like a single track
Oh,
trail, it is so fun. Don't get into the snow on the steep sections of Slick Rock. If there's just a little snow, it's so cool. It becomes like a single track ride. It's a really neat experience. I would say like even Ahab, like some of those lower trails out by Kane, by Amasaback trails are pretty great in the winter, pretty awesome. I know you and I have ridden Poison Spider, which I don't recommend to anyone in the winter at all, just as a trail in general, but if you're going to ride it, ride it in the winter because then the sand is rideable.
Yeah, come to find out there's another way to Portal than Poison Spider.
Yeah, so that's a few years ago. Portal's still good to ride in the winter.
Yeah.
A lot of great trails down there in Moab that can still be ridden, just not the upper alpine stuff.
But yeah, go make friends at a bike shop or your neighbors, and they'll let you know what's good and what isn't good, depending on where you're at to ride in the winter. And if you interrupt the bike shop's non-busy season, that's when they get their mental break. At least buy something.
Yeah,
Buy some
buy like
socks
a
or-
power bar or something.
Yeah, at least
Socks.
some chain lube because you destroyed your bike on the way down.
Or if you're
gonna need
Nicole,
more.
buy some heated socks.
Yes,
Yeah,
for Moab.
for Moab in the winter. The whole, like with mountain biking exploding like it has, there's a lot of, like Aaron was saying, you can find which trails are rideable in the winter, and there's a lot more people out there riding in the winter than there ever has been. And I know even where we live in northern Utah, like there's a few trail systems, Antelope Island and Eagle Mountain, where they get ridden consistently enough that you're not really going to destroy those trails. Even if it is winter, it might be freezing cold or it might be a little bit wet, but they get enough traffic that those trails stay, and their conditions are good for it. You're not riding in clay.
Yeah.
But I actually was just looking up today, Antelope Island, getting some trail reports because I there's no bugs right now. It's a great time to go ride. It's a little cold, but it should be awesome.
And you can ride out to Fremont Island,
Oh yeah.
which you can only do when the water's low, like right now. Kind of a cool, interesting ride. Not like crazy fun, but
Well, you bring up a good point with desert riding in the winter, heading south. I think it's an awesome time to get a different experience than what you're used to. I think that applies to pretty much anybody. You ride your local trails all the time. When you head out into the desert or a little bit warmer climate, you're going to experience different terrain and really have a kind of a unique experience. Nicole, favorite place to head south?
Ooh, it's a toss-up between Moab and Fruita. Moab, though,
They're both like what, 4.5?
they're very close
5 hour
to each other.
drive.
Can we consider it the
So,
same
so we're lucky.
place?
No, they're not. They're unique. Man. They're very different, even though they're close.
Right. St. George is good too, though.
Yeah. Now that e-bikes are taking off too, you may head south and find that you're in a community of, I can't say geriatrics because I'm getting close.
basically there. I
Geriatrics on e-bikes. But I mean, we went and rode South Mountain for a few days
Oh yeah.
a couple years ago, and I mean we're cruising through the desert. Pivot was cool enough to give us a couple of bikes to just go cruise around, and we were actually there for a different bike manufacturer's dealer show, which was also awesome. But in the evening we went out and rode pivots on a bunch of the South Mountain trails. I was shocked at how many retired people were out there cruising the trails, and several of them passed me, and then they were on e-bikes, so I didn't feel quite as bad. But huge avid bike communities now, and a lot of these, what used to be kind of like, what do they call them? Snowbirds.
Yeah.
People that hide from the snow. I think they call them snowbirds.
Snowbirds, because old birds was not nice, I guess.
Because Grumpy Old Men was already taken.
Yeah.
There's like 3 movies.
Yeah. I guess because birds migrate, so they're like snowbirds, because they migrate away from the snow. Yeah.
There you go. Aaron just solved a mystery for all of us. Snowbirds, because they migrate from the snow. Whatever that is. But yeah, you actually, there's great communities out there. You're gonna make some grandpa and grandma friends probably riding, and I know we've helped out a lot of people who have second homes and who want to get out and ride in the winter, and getting them either on an e-bike or a bike that they're going to be comfortable with riding those types of trails on. How far south do you have to go?
Depends on the year. Because, like, here we're into December and we still got some dirt.
Yeah.
Last year we were riding dirt second week of December in Ogden, which is like 45 minutes away from us. Sometimes even Corner Canyon and Draper can be ridden just about year round. So for us here in Utah, St. George is the go-to. It is highly unlikely that they're going to have snow. It happens, but not very often.
For the mountain bike community that doesn't recognize St. George as a destination, Virgin, Utah, is
Rampage home.
Home of Rampage is part of St. George. But not only does it have some of the best free ride, it has some of the best mesa trails, I think, anywhere down there as well. So, yeah, that's a pretty awesome location. Anything that you do to set up your bike differently when you're changing terrain like that?
So yeah, pretty simple. But depending, like if I go to Moab with all the ledgy rocks, I'll usually add about 2 or 3 psi, just because if 2 or 3 psi to my tires, just so that I don't hit those square edges and ding my rims. But yeah, a lot of the time I just run it as I do normally. Sometimes if I'm going to be riding a trail with a lot of sand, I'll drop the pressure a little bit to get a little bit better flotation, which I wish that I had 2.8 or 3.0 tires when we rode Poison Mesa. We might have hiked a little bit less through the sand then.
Yeah. Oh, sand. Good conversation here to be had. We talked last episode all about fat biking, and I think that one of the places that fat biking probably doesn't get utilized as much as it could is in sand. We always talk about we live by a lake, Bear Lake it's called, it has pretty sandy beaches all the way around. But some of my favorite, I talked about not loving fat biking as much as the other two, but some of my favorite experiences have been on fat bikes on the beach, like along the ocean. In the winter you can head south, find a spot on the ocean that has long beaches, take your fat bike. You'll be amazed at the cool things you'll see and the lack of people down there in the winter. My wife and I a couple years ago took our fat bikes to Mexico and drove and found this chunk of beach where we were riding for miles by ourselves. And at one point there was dolphins jumping just off the shore, riding along with us, like for probably a mile and a half. There's just these dolphins that are hopping along. Super cool. Great way to use fat bikes. I would totally recommend thinking outside the box. If you do pick up a fat bike, go out in the desert, try it. Find a beach or a weird river trails or a big lake and circumnavigate those suckers, because you don't need a trail. And I don't really know of anywhere that I've seen that it's like a remote beach where it's outlawed. I think you can pretty much ride fat bikes on the beach pretty much everywhere except in like super high traffic areas where you wouldn't want to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So give that a shot. Crazy rad experience to get out there and do it. The other thing that locally people have been doing is like bike parks. They've been doing a better job of maintaining those for winter riding, if at all possible. Less crowded, great time to get out there and work on your skills. Go hit your local pump track. Odds are that somebody rode through it and then the sun hit it. And don't do it if it's wet and muddy. But if somebody's done it and it's kind of dried off enough, great time to work on your skills in the winter. And just another form of winter riding that people don't think about.
Yeah. Places like the bike park, as long as it's frozen, fantastic hit. But sometimes, depending on the park, they might close it down. Make sure that you, of course,
Obey the rules.
Obey the rules.
And if it sticks, stop. Yeah.
If it sticks or you sink, stop.
Yeah. Either of those.
If you don't turn the screw if you don't know what to do.
If the mud sticks, dang it, I don't have anything.
That was sad.
It rhymes with all the wrong things. If the mud sticks, don't be a prick.
I had a different. Okay, I had a different word, but
Yeah, I've picked one from across the pond, so it's not as offensive. Right, we're good.
Here, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd just say this is like, if you don't embrace winter, or even if you do embrace winter, you need to get out of town. There are a few places if you lived in Alaska, but even if you're in Canada, you can drive for a couple hours.
Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a lot of places where, sometimes it's like prime riding season, because they get their rain, so you get actual loamy dirt, which we're not sure what that is sometimes down here, but
Yeah.
but it does exist. But yeah, I'd say for me, huge recharge in the middle of winter to go hit the desert for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like saves my life sometimes to get out there and do that.
But yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. There aren't very many places where you're not a day's trip from riding destination. Like the Midwest has a lot of stuff in Tennessee and Northwest Arkansas. It can be ridden in the winter a lot of the time. East Coast has the Carolinas, and if you have to, go to Florida.
Don't go ride your bike in Florida.
They actually have some pretty rad stuff through the swamps. I've been tempted.
So last question for you guys. What is a destination that's still on your list to hit in the winter? Nicole.
Oh, I don't know. To hit in the winter?
Yeah, for a road trip. I mean, you could always fly somewhere too, but
Right.
honestly, that's kind of miserable. I mean, you can use bike flights and ship your bike, then you gotta rebuild it and all this stuff, or take it on a plane, but then that's a whole nother section of maintenance nonsense we don't really want to get into. But if you have one place left on your list that you haven't ridden yet, that you really want to try going south, what would it be?
I actually, I'm kind of ashamed to admit, I've never been to Sedona.
Oh, yeah. We were going to go there. And then
Yeah, that's a good one.
COVID hit and
Yeah.
canceled plans.
A couple of really famous and internet famous trails, but also really awesome network. I'm told my buddy rode it last year and has been telling me I need to go ride it. I haven't done that either. It's on my list. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Nicole, do you have one?
You know, I'm so content with life that I don't have a list.
Yeah, that'd be fabulous.
Usually other people just say something like, "Oh, I want to go there."
Let's
And
do it.
that's where I go next.
Yeah. Oh, the one, so before COVID, everybody ended up in Vegas in the winter
Mhm.
for some reason, like a convention or
Yeah.
work trip, or it just seemed to be the place you always ended up. And people don't think of that as an awesome riding destination.
Yeah.
It's fabulous in the winter.
Mhm.
Yeah, they've got a couple of trail networks that are fantastic.
Yeah, you've got
Blue
a
Diamond.
great variety. Blue Diamonds, some great cross country stuff. You've
Yeah.
got Bootleg Canyon, which is like world class gnarly downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And there are even companies that will shuttle it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great places to rent bikes down there. I know you looked at moving there at one point and kind of checked out the scene pretty heavily, but I always end up in Vegas for a work trip in the winter, except during COVID, and it made life so much more enjoyable to be downtown Vegas for an hour or two for meetings and then head out in the desert and hit some rides. That's one of the few places where I would rent a bike, because you're always flying in and out just a day or two. But yeah, get out, head south for when winter is coming. And like I said, we could probably do another episode sometime about how to pack your bike up if you are going to fly, but that's a whole nother animal. And you got to have some decent skills, because when you reassemble a bike, you always end up with something that you have to tweak, it seems like. So that's maybe a good idea to put on our list for MTBTune.Online, how to take care of that.
Pack it up.
Out! Wait,
I was going to say pack it in. He said pack it up. I said pack it in.
pack it up, pack it in.
Let me begin.
As long as the show stops.
So we're done.
Can we go ride bikes now?